Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Saga. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with the First Impressions Showdown number 2. And some of you on the channel may not understand why there's a number 2 in the title. Well, let's go over some history, shall we? I know, everyone's favorite subject in school. So in spring 2018, during specifically the beginning of the spring 2018 anime season, I decided to do something called the Spring 2018 Anime First Impressions. I took a look at all the anime from that season that I was interested in checking out and did a First Impressions video talking about it. It was legitimately the birthplace of the First Impressions reviews and reactions on this channel. And it wasn't something I continued to actively do. It wasn't like a really strong continuous thing. But then in August of that year, I did the second video under that kind of title. It was called First Impressions Showdown Inuyashiki versus K-On! This was the first of our First Impressions reactions. The other one was just a review talking about the different shows. This one was actually a reaction. And it was basically me reacting to the first episodes of both Inuyashiki and Season 2 of K-On! And basically deciding which I wanted to check out first. Because at the time we were doing a poll, and both of these got tied in the poll. So I decided to do it this way. I would check out the first episode, and the one that I would watch first would be whichever one I just was more interested in. And it ended up being Inuyashiki. We tried to watch through more of K-On! Season 2 later. I just kind of lost interest, if I'm being honest. But the point is, those two videos in 2018 are the birth of the First Impressions. And after those, there was nothing on the channel under that title until 2021. Well into the pandemic and everything, I basically brought the concept back with WandaVision. WandaVision was the first of the Disney Plus MCU shows, and I decided to bring back the moniker of First Impressions to review it. To give my first impressions, give my thoughts on the first episode without having to react to it, because I didn't want to react to it. I just was going to give my first impressions. And that later became an entire thing for all of the new MCU shows. And yes, that's going to include Secret Invasion, which just came out. But I kept doing that as well. And not just for MCU stuff. I did it for anime, for live action shows, all kinds of stuff that I was just kind of vaguely interested in, basically. And some of the shows I ended up continuing to watch on my own and everything and ended up loving, like Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out, or Invincible was one of those. But if I'm looking here, the first actual First Impressions reaction was Neon Konbini, and that was in June of 2021. Neon Konbini was like this Rooster Teeth compilation thing that was like a bunch of shorts and whatnot. Nothing altogether amazing or whatnot, but it was the first actual First Impressions reaction I did, instead of just a review. And that stemmed obviously into other stuff, like Revolutionary Girl Utena was shortly after that. And of course I went back and did reviews and stuff as well, but the First Impressions reactions kind of kept going from there and eventually took over. As you know, nowadays I do those a lot more than the First Impressions reviews. And so it all kind of stemmed from two videos in 2018. And this is kind of a callback to those videos, and more specifically, the First Impressions Showdown between Inuyashiki and K-On! This is number 2 because that video exists. Except this time, it's not going to be because of a poll. This time, it's not going to be to determine what I necessarily watched first. This time we are running it on regular first impressions rules, except we are doing 5 series today. We are doing 5 different episode 1s to kick this off. And this might be a thing that comes back into the future. I might do this again, basically to get a bunch of like first impressions out kind of in one go. Hell, it might even be my preferred way of getting out first impressions reactions going forward. It's possible. Obviously not counting donation reward first impressions, but still. It is possible that this ends up becoming a new standard. So you might be wondering, what are the 5 shows that we will be reacting to today? Well, I have decided to go with Dr. Stone, Golden Kamuy, Heavenly Delusion, Vinland Saga, and Oshi no Ko, in that order. There's a kind of mixed thoughts I have on these. Like, I know what all of them are. I've heard of people talking about them and stuff. But I don't know a lot of details necessarily. I know they exist, and I know very little. Or at least to varying degrees. And I have various thoughts going in. So Dr. Stone, the one we're going to be starting with, is probably the one I know the most about. I know the general gist of, people being frozen in stone for hundreds or thousands of years or whatnot. They start to turn back, very slowly, like one guy at first, and it's all about science and stuff. And I think the reason why I kind of avoided it was because of the design of the main character kind of turned me off. Saying he's silly looking would be an understatement. But I've decided to give it a try because it's got multiple seasons now and people seem to love it. Golden Kamuy, I know very little about. In fact, I don't even know what it's actually about. I've just seen screenshots randomly here and there. A lot of people say it's pretty wacky. And I don't actually know anything. It's like you see those out of context videos on YouTube, and that's my knowledge of Golden Kamuy. Just completely out of context screenshots randomly spread throughout Twitter and all. But it has multiple seasons. It's another show with multiple seasons that is seemingly doing pretty well. So I'm willing to give it a shot. Heavenly Delusion and Oshi no Ko, I'll just talk on those two together. Those two are newer anime, just having come out. And I don't know what Heavenly Delusion's about at all. But I know that it's pretty popular. I've seen a lot of people, I've seen that there's a lot of people reacting to it. And I've seen a lot of people, just mentioning it and stuff for anime from this season. It's another one I don't really know the plot of at all. I don't even know how many screenshots I've seen of it. I just know people talk about it. And Oshi no Ko, I know a little bit more. I know it has to do with idols, and I know it's kind of a brain fuck. Plus, also, some people say it's really emotional. Also, there's a meme that comes from it with these, 2 babies shaking, these, dancing with these glow sticks and whatnot. And it's just the fuck? But yeah, that's the really extent of my knowledge. The first episode is actually extremely long, almost movie length. It's like you're watching an episode of Stranger Things or something. But yeah, it supposedly gets pretty wild right from the start. Then we have Vinland Saga, which, as I mentioned, is between Heavenly Delusion and Oshi no Ko. in terms of the order we're going to be doing things today. Vinland Saga is another one that has multiple seasons. I think it's on its second, currently airing. And it's another one that's really popular. Like, I've seen people talk about this with such praise that it's insane. But then other people just don't really talk about it at all. It's like it has such a dedicated fan base that they are very vocal about it. And everyone else either hasn't seen it or just it's not their kind of series, from what I've gathered. And I don't know what camp I'm going to fall under, obviously. That's kind of the entire point of this. But I'm definitely interested because it's about Vikings, which I'm not entirely like sold on, but I've heard it's a very like investing series. Like you get like really invested in it pretty quickly. But then again, I don't know for sure because I've heard that about series that I ended up not liking. So to be fair, to be fair. But yeah, so once again, the order, though, is, for the most part, as I said, Dr. Stone, Golden Kamuy, Heavenly Delusion, Vinland Saga, and Oshi no Ko. But these will all also be in their separate videos. That is just the order I'm going to record them in, and the order they're going to be listed in down in the description below. Because it's just going to make it easier that way instead of putting it all in one video. By recording them separately and uploading them separately, it's going to allow for you to check out specific ones a lot easier. Like, let's say you only want to see my reaction to Oshi no Ko. This way you can do so without having to find that point in the video where I get to that. That way you don't have to worry about all of that nonsense. They're going to be their own separate videos, but they're all going to be linked down in this same description because it's all part of the same thing here. I will also record afterthoughts basically right after I record each reaction. So, for example, after I finish Dr. Stone episode 1, I'm going to record my afterthoughts to that, and then I'm going to move on to Golden Kamuy. The afterthoughts I'm going to try to keep them short. Because they're all going to be edited together into the afterthoughts, into the redirect video. So, yeah, it's all going to be added together. Obviously, there will be timestamps to tell you when each part of the afterthoughts begins and everything. So, yeah. But this might be, like I said, a way to do these first impressions from now on. It might be just a really good way to handle this. I don't know. We'll have to see, to be sure. But I'm at least excited to do this today. It sounded like a fun idea. It just kind of really came to me because I just randomly remembered the old video with Inuyashiki and Kaon. And it's like, I could do that again. So yeah, this is going to be a long recording session and it's going to be a lot, but it's going to be worth it, I feel. And you may be wondering as well, real quick, you may be thinking like, don't you have enough first impression stuff on the back burner? I have a lot of everything on the back burner, and that's pretty much constant. It's like every kind of reaction I do, whether it be Connie's choice, whether it be donation rewards, whether it be first impressions, everything has a shit ton on the back burner. Adding more really won't change anything at this point. It's just because it's just whatever I feel like at any time anyway, getting to next. So it's like, it's not really going to change much. It's just not. Adding more, like, I don't want to add more like haphazardly. I am going to be like notably strict on these. So it's like anything that I add onto my list for the future will be stuff that I am sure I want to get to again. But yeah, Um, if by any chance uh, we just don't get anything because of that, we don't. It's possible. But there's also a very good chance we do get to everything. So it's just going to depend on what my thoughts on these shows are. Um, and yeah, if we do make this kind of a standard going forward, it's going to be spread apart just for obvious reasons. Because this is pretty much taking up an entire day of recording. I mean, for the most part, it's like this is all I can record today just because of the time. But I did wake up extra early today. It's actually 7:38 right now as of recording this. I'm not used to waking up that early. Usually the earliest I wake up is like more like 8:30 to 9. I woke up around 7. Actually a little before 7 because I woke up before my dad left for work. Um and he starts work at 7, so yeah, so that's fun. That's a lot earlier than I usually wake up. So if I seem tired or I'm yawning a lot or whatnot, you know why. It's like I said yawning and that like set me off. But in all seriousness, it's like I'm always yawning anyway, so I don't think that's really going to do much to change anything. But yeah, so we should probably begin this and hope for the best. That being said, thank you so much for tuning in. And yeah, let's get this wild thing going. So, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the links to all of the different reactions, and after you watch them, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, we will have all of the different afterthoughts that will contain spoilers to the episodes, the first episodes of each of these series. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing... wow, almost did the entirely wrong thing. And for now, I will see you at the reaction, or reactions. And we are back, and we'll begin with the Dr. Stone portion of the afterthoughts, blah, in 3, 2, 1, now. So, this was great. I really have to re-examine my personal biases sometime because the fact that I judged this based on the main character's appearance being so drastically vegetable-like was entirely unfair. I acknowledge that anyway, like judging an entire series based off of a character design is stupid. It's actively fucking dumb. But I did it. I don't entirely know why, but I did it. Um, but yeah, I really need to re-examine my personal biases. This episode goes a lot further than I was expecting. Like as I was watching, I was thinking like it wasn't going to go much longer after they are unpetrified, and so I was surprised that it like we had kind of like a little montage of like 6 months worth of work that they were doing. That caught me a bit off guard. Um, but yeah, it was really good. Uh, so first off, we don't know what caused this petrification. It seemed to be happening to birds first, though. Like we saw that there were some birds turned to stone that they thought were just statues that were being left around or something. But then at one point, the entire world is just well, not simultaneously, but in quick succession turned to stone. We see the wave of effect sweeping over the planet. They're all turned to stone, and then 3,700 years later, they start to unpetrify. Senku seems to be the first that we know of. Though, considering this happened to the entirety of the world, probably not actually the first. There's a high likelihood that other people have unpetrified at various points around the world. And the thing is, there'd be no way to confirm or deny that because they have no forms of communication anymore. Like, they have no phones or internet or anything anymore. Like I said in the reaction, they were basically brought back to the Stone Age. So, because of this, there's no way to know if they were actually the first ones to wake up. They were just the first ones in their general area. And honestly, that's not even confirmable. Someone else might have woken up and just traveled away from that area, for all we know. That's possible, too. But they're the first ones we see wake up. Senku has been living for 6 months by the time his friend wakes up. I can't remember the friend's name. But Senku has been just self-sustained. He's built shelter. He has gathered food, materials, created weapons in case of needing protection. He is fully on it. This dude is clearly genius levels of smart, even outside of just science. Like, he's exceptionally intelligent. He also kept himself alive by keeping track of time, while his friend kept himself alive by thinking of the girl he liked. And they say kept alive, but it's more akin, I think, to kept sane. Because, again, with them being conscious the entire time, that's like straight out of a horror movie. Like, they would have absolutely lost their sanity. I don't know if they could have actually died in that kind of sense, though. Because their bodies were basically frozen in time. Their minds were able to survive that without any sort of nutrients or anything that would give life. Water, sun, anything. They were kept alive as it was. Again, the only thing that they did, I think, is keep themselves sane. And I don't even know if that would work, though. After 3,700 years, the one dude keep himself sane by just thinking about protecting his crush. It's like, I don't know if that would work after that long. Same with Senku, just, counting time and all. It's like, I'm not sure that would work after a certain amount of time. But of course, excuse me, of course, with a series like this, you're going to have to give some leeway. It's not going to be 100% realistic because it can't be. I feel like if it were, no one would be able to keep their sanity and you wouldn't have a series. But I am kind of wondering, like, what would happen if someone who did go insane wakes up? What happens at that point? That's a very big question. Because I assume they'll wake up and be insane. They will not be, like, properly conscious of their actions and thoughts at that point. But I don't know. Obviously, if anyone who is broken to pieces wakes up, they will just die. They're just gonna die. And it would be gruesome and horrific, too. There'd be lots of blood and shit, probably some innards. Ugh. But by the end of the episode, our two protagonists manage to, mostly Senku, clearly, manage to discover what they need for unpetrifying others. It at least works on a bird. Obviously, you want to do more experiments and make sure it's not just a one-off thing, but it at least worked on a bird, so the possibility exists that they could bring others back. And I can already see where that's going. The one dude's going to want to bring back his crush. Senku might be okay with that. But in general, I think Senku, with his sharp mind, is going to think like, okay, if we're going to bring people back, we have to make sure it's people we know and can trust. Because in a situation like this, you don't want to bring back someone who would be an active danger to you. It's like that would be just not a good idea, to put it simply. So yeah, I wonder. I don't know where this is gonna go. I have some thoughts, and I can see how this could actually be a longer running series. It definitely has a lot of potential for that. Um, I wonder if we're ever gonna find out how it happened. It almost seems like that's impossible, right? But maybe if it was like a lab experiment gone wrong, maybe they'll find like the lab where it started. That's certainly a possibility. But yeah, the concept of this is good. The execution is even better. I think the execution is what makes this really work. And the humor is not like really like campy or cringy or anything. It's actually like so far been just fair humor. It's not like anything like super great or laugh out loud stuff, but it's been completely fair. I've had no issue with it. Um, like my dude getting like his face all messed up from using a clam to shave. Like one, that's gotta hurt like hell to do it like that. Two, it's like that's funny. It's just genuinely funny. This was a surprisingly good time. I genuinely enjoyed this. I thought it was really good. Was it like the best thing I've ever seen? No, obviously not. But I am actually genuinely surprised. So I can say without a doubt that we will be putting this on the list. This is a series I actively want to not only see more of, but specifically want to react to. Because I feel like a series like this would be actually pretty good for reactions. So this will be added to the list. Um, so yeah. But that all being said, tell me in the comments below, what did you think? And thank you for tuning in to the first episode, First Impressions of Dr. Stone. But there is more to go in this special video, this special First Impressions Showdown. So check out the others on the in the description below. Check out the others in the afterthoughts here to hear my thoughts once you have seen them, or any combination of whichever ones you'd be interested in checking out my reaction to. But that all being said, yeah, hope you enjoyed. And we are back, and we will begin with the Golden Kamuy section of these afterthoughts in 3, 2, 1, now. Oh, spoilers, by the way. So I have mixed feelings on this one. Because there's definitely some good aspects to it. There's definitely an interesting plot here. But honestly, I was not really that invested in this episode. I like that one of the main characters, Asiepa, I believe her name is. I like that she is an indigenous Ainu. For those who don't know, the Ainu people are indigenous to a portion of islands in that area that I think partially make up Japan. But they predate the Yamato Japanese, who are what we think of when we think of Japanese people living in the area. They were there first, which is hence why in the episode she refers to him as a Japanese person. This takes place in like just after 1900, so I guess maybe that makes a lot of sense. Time frame stuff has never been great with me. But yeah, I like that. I like the voice acting. The CG is wild. It is so. It looks like it's purposefully trying to be bad, like as a joke. Like it's like the people who made this took the idea of like, okay, let's make these monstrous animals and stuff be in CG for no other reason than just for the shits and giggles. And let's make it purposefully bad just because it'll be fun. That's what it feels like. Because the CG was specifically used on the bear and the wolf, and it both, even though both were very different types of CG as well, they were both like seemingly purposefully bad. Like I don't think you could do that like level of bad CG on accident. Like it seemed like it was very intentionally bad. The bear looked like it was trying to be almost photorealistic, like it was trying to look like a real life bear inserted into this anime, while the wolf looked like a cartoon or anime wolf. And it's like just like the fuck? Why? Why are you doing it this way? Why are they so drastically different? But yeah. The story that we first hear from the old man who, passes it on to our main character and everything, it was very long-winded, the way it was described and presented and all. That was one issue I had with this, is that story just seemed to drag, and it wasn't even presented in a fascinating, investing way. The presentation was just a dude telling a story that he heard. Or we find out was actually involved in, but starting off with like the war between the Japanese and the Russians, it's like, okay, that's an interesting way to bring it into play, just to showcase that this dude is insanely tough to kill, as well as a former soldier who has, lost pretty much everyone around him in that battle. It's a way to establish the character. It's fine. But it's like, after that, he's just kind of there, if I'm being honest. Like, he doesn't really leave an impact as a character, especially as a main character. Honestly, Asirpa leaves a much bigger impact than he does. She's a lot more interesting, a lot more likable, and I'm just instantly more connected to her. And not just because Monica Rial, and I really like Monica Rial as a VA. It's not just because of that. Her character is just vastly more interesting to me than just a soldier who is a little crazy, it seems, but also wants this gold to help his dead friend's family. It's like, it's a noble goal and everything, but he's not interesting. He's not unique. He doesn't have a lot to his character. It's like he feels very bland. And that might change, that might expand as the series continues, but still. The hunt for gold and everything, it's like, okay, it's not anything new for a plot, but we'll go with it, sure. This one didn't impress me as much, if I'm being completely honest. Dr. Stone very much impressed me a lot, but this one was just kind of eh. It's like, it wasn't bad by any means. It just didn't really do it as much for me. So I'm going to say that we are not going to add this to the list. Maybe I'll watch this on my own time, or if someone chooses it as a donation reward at any point because they really like it and want to see me give it another chance, that can happen. But I'm not going to willingly put it on my list myself as of now, because I don't think that this one is worth continuing after a first impression. Again, I might end up being proven wrong if I do see more of it, whether I watch it on my own or someone donates for it. I might be proven wrong. But for now, I'm not really invested in continuing. So those are my thoughts on Golden Kamuy Episode 1. Let me know your thoughts, and thank you for tuning in to this portion of the afterthoughts and this portion of the reaction. If you have not seen the others and wish to see those, please do. Check them out and let me know your thoughts on those as well. For now, though, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Connie, and I hope you enjoy the rest of these reactions and afterthoughts. Yeah. And we are back, and we will begin with the spoilers for Heavenly Delusion in 3, 2, 1, now. So, this was interesting. Yeah. See, like I said in the reaction, I've seen, obviously, stuff like this before. There's a lot of stuff like this. What was that one anime that, like, everybody really liked the first season of, but then apparently hated season 2 of? The one with the demons and the children at the orphanage and all. Oh, that's gonna bother me now if I don't find it. Hold on. That's gonna bother me. Anime, orphanage, Promised Neverland. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that. Like how in Promised Neverland, they're all in like this orphanage, all these kids, and the truth of the world outside of it is kept secret from them with the demons and, you know, children being chosen as sacrifices. And so, like, the main characters end up escaping and everything and having to get out of all of that. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that, except, you know, actually interesting. I know, I nag on about Promised Neverland, but I couldn't get into it. I tried. I could not get into it at all. I just don't think it was well handled, well executed with its first episode. And honestly, the stuff that I've heard from what comes after and all, just it doesn't interest me. This, however, is far more interesting. Because we start off and instantly you know something is up. The instant you see this facility with all these like teenagers running around in these specialized uniforms, the way everything looks, there's like kind of this filter over it. Like I wouldn't say necessarily oversaturated, even though that actually might be the right term. I don't know. But it looks like it's like there's this like faded light that's just placed on top of everything. It just comes across as extremely fake. As if all of this is a delusion, as if it is all just some weird like unreal situation. So it's very clear right from the start that there is some kind of weird shit going on there. It makes it very apparent, and so my thoughts instantly go to, is this that kind of situation where these kids are being kept away from the world? And that becomes especially the theory after we then cut to these other two in a disaster-laden cityscape and everything. And it's just like, oh, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. That pretty much proves it. So we kind of cut back to the I'm just going to say convent. We kind of cut back to the convent a couple times, but only briefly, to touch on the characters we see there and the situations they're going through, including the entire question that comes up, like, is there an outside to these walls? Is there something beyond this dome we're in? And it basically starts because this one girl there ends up getting some kind of message on her phone that she shouldn't be getting, or not a phone, her tablet or whatever, that she shouldn't be getting. It looks like it's a glitch, but I'm thinking maybe someone hacked into her tablet somehow. But she's basically asked, it's like, do you want to know about the or do you want to go to the outside beyond the outside? And it's like, well, that's interesting. And she doesn't seem to think too much of it, but the questions start to arise, is there something else out there? And so eventually, at night, the one kid goes out there and is confronted by the director, and the question comes up, at which point the director says, oh yeah, there's shit out there. There is a world beyond these walls. But it's hell. It is a hellscape with these horrific monsters, and as we see in the episode, she wasn't lying. she wasn't necessarily lying. Now, I still say there could be some more nefarious purposes behind this, not necessarily to the same degree as something like Promised Neverland, where it's like, oh, they'll end up being sacrificed to some demons or some shit. But maybe. I don't know. But I'm still saying there is something else to this. I don't think that this director is as nice as we're being led to believe. But most of the episode focuses around these two survivors, these two who had been born after this apocalyptic event and are just kind of fulfilling this mission, it seems, because apparently she was hired as his bodyguard to accompany him on his goal to finding heaven, whatever that means. It's apparently some location specifically that they're looking for, but they don't really know the details of. They're just looking for a place that could be referred to as heaven. And they're following any leads possible. Anything that could possibly be it. Along the way, she's trying to find a couple different people. Someone who's very important to her and someone who she just wants to meet. We don't know why. We don't know the situations at all. But yeah. And she is packing heat. The power of gun returns. Except this time it's not just a regular ass gun. It's a super sci-fi laser gun. Because why the fuck not? It's like, if you're going to have a gun in a series like this, why not have it be just absolutely insane? Like, seriously, when she shot that thing, it legitimately kind of jump scared me. It's like, the fuck? I was not expecting that. Like, at first I thought it was just a regular gun, but then when she's like, run, after they call it out on being fake, I'm thinking like, oh, it probably is fake then, okay. Just the tool used to intimidate and get them around safely with raiders and stuff in the areas. But no, it's very real. It's just not super reliable, it seems. It also kind of maybe implies that she created the technology behind it. So that's interesting in and of itself. But we end up seeing a glimpse at first of this bird-like demon monster thing. And at first, like at the first glimpse, we kind of just think it's a bird, a giant bird. Which is pretty scary in and of itself. That could very much be very dangerous and horrifying. But then at the end, we see it like more closely and in more detail and everything. And yeah, that's not no regular bird. I don't know if the situation of everything that happened is like nuclear levels. Like, do we have like some kind of fallout situation where animals have mutated? I mean, I guess it's possible, but I don't know. I don't know. But we're kind of getting to see just how this world works and the fear that people have instilled in them. And just a lot of shit going down. The fact that these two like don't even know for certain their ages is actually really sad as well. Like, the girl knows she's somewhere between 18 and 20, and the boy believes he's about 15. And I'm sure they're both fairly accurate. I'm sure she is between 18 and 20. I'm sure he's about 15, like give or take a year. They probably know that much, but the fact that they don't know for certain, the fact that like they don't keep track of that is just wild to think about. Because that is something we actively keep track of in real life. Not only just because of like celebrating our birthdays or whatnot, it's just like something that we just kind of subconsciously keep track of. As the years pass, we know how old we are and how old we keep getting. It's just normal. I know I'm 31 years old, for example. Um, Also, another thing, when she was like going to like kiss her reflection and all, one, a lot of people have done that shit. Um, Two, like the clear attempt at humor and everything when the lady comes in and like the girl is scared and everything, and it's like it's kind of overshadowed by the fact that I'm just like looking at this girl and like looking at all the scars she has and like, what happened to you? What gave you these scars? Why are you so fucked up? Like I'm just genuinely like worrying about this girl, and it's like the series meanwhile is just joking around the fact that someone walked in on her naked and scared the shit out of her, you know. Meanwhile, I'm just like feeling bad for her, and it's like for a different reason. Um, yeah, it's like I'm just really wondering. Like, I assume we'll get backstory and everything, but yeah, it's like I wonder how she got those scars. It's just those seemed pretty notable. And obviously at the end we also had the fact that she kind of seems to talk without thinking sometimes, and she insulted this dude. Though to be fair, I mean it's kind of true. I mean she took on this job, and to him that's what they are. Like she's his bodyguard. It's a job. But it's very clear that still hurt him, and it's something you just shouldn't say in this kind of situation. Um, and I think he seems to think of her as a friend. I don't know how long they've been traveling together, but he seems to think of her as a friend rather than as a bodyguard. So that in and of itself is also pretty interesting. And she insists very hardly that there is nothing between them relationship wise. Um, but yeah, he he seemed to be upset by that too. It's like maybe he does have feelings for her. So there's that you can take into account. Um, but yeah, it's like I feel like the thing with him calling her sis was obvious. So the entire joke about calling her sis as like a sign of endearment rather than as actual brother sister. So I felt it was the joke where the innkeeper is like asking them about like incestuous feelings. That joke was like just like I'm sorry, what? And then she has to explain it to her, and the woman is so embarrassed that that was what she initially thought. Like she entirely misread the situation. Um, it's like, oh my god, why would you even bring that up? Why would you, even if you suspected something like that? Why would you say something like that? Why would you bring that up to someone? Because the thing is, you have to think like saying something like that. You have to think, what if I'm wrong? If I'm wrong here, I seem very fucking creepy and weird to automatically think that. And it's just like, oh my, that was uncomfy. That wasn't even funny. It was just uncomfy. And then at the end, we see the woman brings out her gun and everything, which she says doesn't work on this monster. She says guns don't work on it, but she has it for protection against it anyways. It's just like, I feel like this lady's going to die, and our two protagonists here are going to probably take out the monster, because apparently these beams work on them. These beam guns. I don't know if this is the only one. It's kind of implied that it is, because again, mentioning the entire thing with her possibly creating it, or at least creating the technology or something. I don't know. But it's kind of implied that it's like the only one. And if that's the case, then yeah, they're lucky to have that kind of technology. So it's also implied that these monsters are kind of like all over the place, not just in this specific area. Because or at least that's what the director said. Um, so it's definitely implied that there are definitely more of them out there, and probably different varieties too. They probably don't all look like birds. Um, so that's going to be an interesting aspect of this. Yeah, but this first episode definitely hooked me in. It got me invested, made me interested in not as much the characters, but more so the mystery of it all, the situations, how everything happened, the everything with this again, I'm calling it a convent. Everything with that is excessively fascinating. Honestly, if the entire series were focused around that place instead, I would have been even more invested. The fact that a lot of it is centered around these other two characters who are already outside of that all, it takes away a little bit for me personally. That's just entirely a personal thing, though. But I assume the major characters we saw in the convent are going to come into or come out into the outside and meet our main characters. Either that, or this is just being used to express maybe where our main characters came from. Maybe not like that specific one, but something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities. Um, but tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this first episode of Heavenly Delusion? Let me know if you enjoyed it as much as I did, if you see as much value in it. Oh, and by the way, this is being added to the list. I don't know if I made that obvious enough, but I should probably say it just to be safe. This is being added to the list. We are definitely going to continue reacting to it in the future. I don't know if we'll end up doing the whole thing, but I definitely want to continue reacting to it specifically because it is very fascinating. But for the meantime, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this part of the video. If you haven't already, check out the other reactions and check out the other afterthoughts as well. And thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. And we are back, and we'll begin with the Vinland portion, part of these afterthoughts, with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. This was another one of those shows that are just okay. Not great, but not bad either. And again, based on just the first episode. But yeah, just kind of okay. I can see the appeal. But for me, there's not enough to really keep me invested. Like, it's just clearly not for me. It's as simple as that. Um, while other shows I do these first impressions for might be having like oh, I'd rather watch this on my own time kind of feel. This one I'm just not really interested in. Like, I gave it a first episode chance. I gave it a shot, and I'm just, it's not for me, clearly. Again, it's not bad or anything, but it's just, it doesn't appeal to me. By the way, I don't remember any of their names except Leif Erikson, and only because of, let's be honest, memes of Leif Erikson based on SpongeBob and everything. That's the only reason I remember that name. And he's voiced by John Swayze, so that's fun. Yeah. But, yeah, it seems like a pretty simple premise. It's just Viking culture, these different characters. It seems to center around this young kid mostly, and it's going to be like him growing up and presumably going off to Vinland. Going to be a lot of Viking battles and shit. The father we see here is definitely the guy from the cold open who we saw. Obviously a lot older. So I presume the woman he saw in his little fantasy, he already knew. She has a baby with her, from what I'm seeing here. I'm assuming that was the older sister, and not the kid, because there's no one else with her. So I assume when he was out at war like this, that his wife, he was already married, and his daughter had already been born. And so the most of this story takes place years later after his daughter's grown up. He has a young son now as well. So I assume that's the situation. Just heard some beeping. Did that come from my computer? Weird. Anyway, yeah, it's like the cold open focuses on him and everything, and it's like it's pretty clear, like the entire thing is brought up, like, oh, did you run away and everything, like the kid is asking him and stuff, and it's like, and his response is like, that's what they say, that we ran away and everything, but the opening literally shows him running away from battle. The cold open literally shows him just leave the battlefield. And yeah, so we know that for sure. But so yeah, most of the story centers around just kind of like getting to meet the characters. There's not a huge thing here until like this slave comes in. The daughter finds the slave buried in the snow. They try to resuscitate him the best they can. He does end up dying though. They give him some hope though before he does. So that's nice, at least. And they do end up freeing him, so he dies a free man, even though he does die still. They end up buying him for 8 sheep. 8 young sheep, too. Which is... yeah, that would be worth a lot. Like, I don't know everything about bartering and all, how that all used to work back in the old days and all. But I know some stuff about it because I did learn some stuff in, like, school and whatnot. And it's like sheep and cattle and stuff were very valuable. Especially younger ones, because obviously they're young. They have their lives ahead of them. There's a lot of potential there. So it's like there's some understandable stuff with that. It's like 8 sheep is a lot. And it's like ridiculous, obviously. Like in hindsight and everything, it's like thinking about it. Again, this guy had no real choice but to accept. Like, I mean, he was offered 4 sheep. He's the one who said 8, but it's like he's not going to pass up an opportunity like that. It's like that's super useful, and he's going to choose them out himself. It's like, yeah. Why pass up an opportunity like that? You can tell the slave doesn't mean much to him. He only wanted to bring him back at this point to make an example out of him. So, yeah, I mean, human life doesn't seem to mean much to this dude at all. Like, the way he crushed that dude's head with the chain, Jesus fuck. Plus, obviously, the slavery shit and things he said and all. So yeah. That's really all I've got to say about this. Like I'm struggling to think of other things to really talk about, but it's like there's not really much to this, and honestly, it didn't hook me in as much as I would have liked it to. But that means as of recording this, we've had 2 and 2. 2 things that we will be continuing on the channel and 2 things that we will not. So a pretty mixed bag, but we have 1 more to go. So in the meantime, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this first episode of Vinland Saga? And thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't checked them out yet, check out the other reactions and afterthoughts portions of this video. And for now, yeah, I'm Connie, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. And we are back, and we'll begin the final part of these afterthoughts, the afterthoughts for Oshi no Ko, with spoilers, in 3, 2, 1, now. So, if I never have to hear about this series again, I would be very happy. Out of all the things we reacted to today, this is the only one I actively hated. And I know that might be an unpopular opinion, but I hope you can hear me out and at least understand where I'm coming from, even if you don't agree. And I want to make it clear from the start, as I always do, if you like this series, that's fine. You're allowed to have your own opinions on this. But I can't be the only one who found this excessively creepy and gross and fucked up. Right? Like, ignoring all the idle stuff. All the idle stuff with talk of the industry and how it works and how terrible it is. Which I am glad that they basically acknowledged how fucked up the idol industry is in this. Because the idol industry is excessively fucked. And this episode, this, for some reason, hour and 20-minute episode, but I'll get into that in a bit, it made a very big point of showcasing that. And not just the idol industry, even the acting industry and other stuff like that. It makes a very big point of just talking about how messed up the overall entertainment industry is. And I can appreciate that. That being said, this excessively grossed me out. Like, I'm talking Kill la Kill's level. Kill la Kill level of grossed out. And you guys know at this point, if you don't know, if you haven't seen my reaction to as much of that as I did, I don't even remember, or have just not heard me talk about it, I hate Kill la Kill. It is extreme yuck for me. As I've said before, if you like Kill la Kill, if you can get over the sexualization of the underage characters and just like separate it from reality by acknowledging it's fiction and everything, that's fine. All the power to you. I can't separate that. And there is a lot of grossness in here that I can't just get over either, for the same kind of reasons. First off the bat, like, the idea of a teenager getting pregnant is like that kind of stuff does happen, obviously, in real life for various reasons, and it's obviously not okay. A teenager shouldn't really have a child because they're not in a position to handle it. Like, even if you want to argue the fact that they could be mature enough to be able to take care of a child, they're a teenager with school and everything and just how their lives tend to be. They don't have the availability to take care of a child. That's why you often hear about a lot of teens who do get pregnant dropping out of school and stuff because they have to in order to properly take care of their child. The only other option would be for someone in their family to help them with it. And even then, it would still be so much work for them that just they would not be able to properly handle. It would cause way too many problems and just be hell for everyone involved. There's a lot of issues that come from it. And yes, there are examples of that working. It can work, but I feel that's more of the exception than the rule, just from the stuff I've heard from firsthand experiences with this kind of thing. So, like, that is, like, it's obviously uncomfortable for that to happen, but things happen. That's not the worst of it. the worst of it is centering around this middle-aged man or so, like what, in his 30s or 40s? Probably 30s. He didn't seem that old. But this like man in his 30s, I shouldn't say middle-aged for that, but you know, um, dying and then being resurrected as the child of the idol and his already fucking creepy obsession, which was bordering on pedophilic, um, which was called out, mind you, but doesn't make it any less gross and really upsetting and hard to watch. It actually kind of gets worse when he, is reborn as the child of I and has to go through all of this, gaining a completely different kind of connection to her that honestly just makes it creepier. It makes it excessively creepier. It's just so gross. And it's like the entire time watching this, there were a couple points where I was actually getting nauseous, like physically sick from watching this. That's how upset and gross it was to me. I was actually actively physically getting sick from watching this. It it's just and the fact that the daughter, his twin sister, is also resurrected, and she was the 16 or the 14, 12, 12. It was 4 years before I was 16, so she was 12 at the time. She died at 12 years old, was resurrected, and as a baby is just like also very creepy about it. Not as much as Aqua. I'll call him Aqua for the sake of ease because I don't remember his name as the doctor. Um, Not as creepy as he is, but still creepy, especially with like the bragging like she had over breastfeeding. It's you know this is still a 16-year-old girl, right? And you're bragging and holding it over Aqua's head. Like, that's not okay. That's creepy. Like, this is excessively creepy and gross, and I, mm. And I couldn't get over that the entire time watching. Like, trying to focus on other stuff or even a couple funny lines here and there. Um, Following Aqua's attempts at acting, or Ruby learning to dance or anything, or just the struggle of I keeping all this a secret, or obviously the looming threat in the background. None of it could even slightly, like, turn my attention away from the creepy factor of this all. And the wildest thing is, Aqua does not even slightly realize that he's just as bad as the murderer. This murdering psycho stalker who, the fact that this industry creates things like this, I've seen this in so many different shows and stuff where this kind of thing is like a common thing for idols and everything. Even Carol and Tuesday touched on this. And I've heard stories of shit like this actually happening. And it happens here in America too with celebrities. If I remember right, it's a similar kind of deal as what happened with Christina Grimmie. That entire situation was extremely fucked up and terrible. And it's like, this entire shit, and it's like the idol culture basically making them like goddesses to these over obsessed weirdos is like, this is not healthy for anyone involved. And again, this is not new information. It's pretty well known that idol culture is toxic as fuck. But at the same time, it's like, it doesn't make it any more enjoyable to watch. Um, it's like, I've never really understood why people can be so into idol shows and stuff. Like, yeah, it's anime and it's fake and everything, but it's still really fucking creepy. Like, Symphogear is good in the regard that that's not actually the focus of the series. The series with Symphogear focuses on trauma babies and me wanting to protect them. God, I'm not any better, am I? No, but in all seriousness, outside of the obvious joke, it's like, no, the series touches on a lot of trauma and pain and just obviously the horrific situations with the aliens and everything. It's the idol stuff with Symphogear is very much a dressing for the story. It's meant to like more push it forward than actually, you know, be the focus. And it's like, and anytime I think of like actual idol stuff, it's like it just makes me upset, and it's like I don't want to feel that way. And the thing is, and I know this might seem a little unfair to everything, but because of that, because of my being excessively creeped out the entire time, I wasn't even able to connect with these characters. Ai's death at the end meant nothing to me. I was not even the slightest bit sad. I didn't care. I don't care about Aqua. I don't care about Ruby. I don't care about the director or the manager or his wife. I don't care about any of them. The only character I kind of cared about was Ruby in her previous life. I don't remember her previous name at the moment. But that even kind of went away as soon as she started being Ruby and started being honestly very creepy herself. And it's just, people were like raving about this when the first episode came out and raving how it's like, oh, it's so shocking and wow. It's like, it's really not that bad. I've seen a lot worse. Like, honestly, ReZero's first episode is much more shocking. It's like, this was not that bad. But, like, people are, like, going crazy about this show. Like, so many reactors have been reacting to it. And it's like, I guess a lot of them can just get past the creepiness factor, but I can't. There's so many strong issues with it. There's so many implications that are exceptionally and just unbelievably just fucked up and creepy and unsettling. And it's just, I really actively did not like this. The animation was fine, the art was fine, all of that was good. Again, there were some good jokes in it. But overall, this was very much one of those cases where this series is clearly not just for me. It's like I just actively hated this. This was a miserable experience. And it kind of makes me sad that this was the last part of this video, because that means I have to end off on that for now. Ugh. I'll have other things to watch that'll bring my mood back up. But yeah, this was a miserable experience. It's like, with certain anime, like Code Geass, it's like, I just don't like it. It's just not for me. Other people like it, I can understand that, I can support that, that's fine. It's just not for me. But with stuff like Kill la Kill or this, it's like, I actually actively hate this. It is a very active disdain. Because it is so excessively unenjoyable to watch for me. It is so excessive. On top of the creepiness, it's just miserable to watch. Nothing about it, like, allowed me to get over that or over the just my feelings towards the idol industry and shit. And it's like, and again, it's like, with Aqua not being really that much better, with him obsessing over her in an extremely creepy way, to the point where even at the end he's like, well, I'm going to find her murderer, or I'm going to find the guy who helped her murderer because the murderer committed suicide. I'm going to find who that is and kill them. Very dead. It's like you're you're being overly obsessive and clingy and excessively creepy towards who at the time of her death at least was 19. Am I the only one who is extremely yucked by this? Like, this is extremely gross, and I just I And then there's the entire aspect that this was an hour and 20 minutes. Why? Why was this an hour and 20 minutes? Why did they have to make a, an episode that's like the length of 4 episodes? Why? Was there a reason? Like, yeah, you could. It did say like this has all been the prologue and everything, and it's like, okay, you could have just made 4 episodes for that. You didn't have to do one quadruple length episode. That's not necessary. In fact, it's kind of weird. It's a weird choice. Like having a double length episode for a first episode or whatnot is fine. Like hell, even if you wanted to do the first 2 episodes being double length each and having it be like this big premiere kind of situation, I can give you that. But having a single episode be this long, it's like the only reason shows like Stranger Things got away with this and whatnot is because Stranger Things had multiple seasons under its belt already to establish itself and to make this kind of thing work. Even if you wanted, again, like an hour-long episode and just cut out 20 minutes, I could have dealt with that. Because a lot of shows do that nowadays. Not anime necessarily as much, but a lot of shows do hour-long episodes. Sure, but an hour and 20? You had to add in just that extra length of time that equates to an entire other episode. And on top of it, most of the stuff in here was just random filler, it felt like. Again, it's probably going to come back into play. Like we saw that the actress girl is going to be coming back. But it's like a lot of it felt like it wasn't really important. It was just stuff to add in. This could have easily been cut down. It did not need to be this long. And I don't know if this is based off a manga or anything. If it is, and the manga's like introductory parts are this long, its introductory chapters are just happen to also be like this long until it gets to all of this is in it. You know what I mean? If that's the case, then it's like, okay, but you still could have organized that differently rather than put it all in a single episode. It just feels off to me. Maybe that's just me. But having it be an hour and 20 minutes felt needless, and it just made the pacing feel slow as hell, honestly. Like, it felt like this was dragging on. There were multiple times where I looked at the time because I was wondering where it was in the episode. Because I had no clue, because the pacing was so off that it's like, it didn't really give me a good feeling of that. There was the first time I looked, I'm like expecting it to have already been like 45 minutes. I look at the time, it hasn't even been 30, and it's like, yeah. I think it's very clear we will not be reacting to any more of this on the channel. Um, Hell, I mean, I don't even know if I would accept a donation reward to continue it at this point. I probably would. I probably would because, like, I'm not going to necessarily, like, deny a donation reward, but I don't actively know if anything can really change my feelings on this and how gross I find this. Honestly, I probably, actually, I don't know. I wouldn't want to accept a reward for this. Please, just please don't, okay? Like this is this one. Like again, this is something I actively hated. For something that I just like didn't catch on to or something, you can donate for me to continue stuff like that. But for something like this, that again, I just actively hated to such a degree, something that grossed me out that much, it's like, I don't want to watch more. If you really force it on me, I guess I won't deny you, but I don't want to watch more. Even if the series ends up getting a lot better and less fucking creepy from here on out, it's just like I am just so turned off by this first episode. But tell me your thoughts down below. Let me know what you thought of this episode, this first quadruple length episode of Oshi no Ko. And thank you all so much for tuning in. If you haven't checked them out already, check out the other reactions of this video. There are 4 more of them. Check out the afterthoughts as well, where I give all my thoughts on all of them. It should be sorted out into chapters on the video, so you can find all of the specific parts of this pretty easily. But that being said, we should probably get into just overall final thoughts on this video. So overall final thoughts will begin. Thank you all so much for tuning in, though. And yeah, let's get on to it. Okay, and we are here at the final thoughts following all the reactions, following all the afterthoughts we did for each series, for each first impressions reaction here. So I'm not going to go over all the thoughts again. You'll have seen those there. But just as a small recap in regards to what we will be continuing from these. We will be continuing Dr. Stone and Heavenly Delusion. Those are the 2 out of the 5 today. We will be continuing in the future. They will be added to the list. The other 3 shows, Golden Kamuy, Vinland Saga, and Oshi no Ko, will not. Again, as I say, unless someone ends up donating for them in the future to have me continue them or at least give them another chance. But for now, like in terms of the first impressions, we only have 2 that are continuing on. So this was our first impressions. My mind is blanking. First impressions Showdown. Our second time we've done something like this, even though the last time was only 2, and it was more of like an actual face-off between them. This one is a lot more just simply, we're just gonna nail out a bunch of these in one go, do it all as one video, something fun and interesting and special that we haven't done before, that kind of thing. So yeah, this was an interesting experiment. Like I said before, maybe we'll do this again in the future. It actually could be a good way to continue doing this. It takes a lot out of me, though. I started recording all of these at 7:30 in the morning, and it is currently noon. That is how many hours I have spent recording this. To be fair, one of these was also an hour and 20 minutes long, so that didn't help. If it was regular length like the others were, obviously it wouldn't have taken me as long. And most of these will probably, if I do this again, the choices I make will probably be more all normal length stuff. But if I do this again, it probably won't be for a while or something. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. So, yeah. I did very much enjoy this experience, even if I didn't enjoy every show. And I think this was a really fun idea. Something special, something different to do on the channel, just to change things up a bit. But I definitely want to hear your thoughts as well. What did you think of the idea of doing this as a first impressions showdown? Do you like this, or would you prefer having it just one at a time spread out like I've been doing. I would love to hear your thoughts. And I would love to hear your thoughts once again on all of the shows I reacted to today. Even if your opinion is different than mine, I welcome that. But for now, thank you all so much for tuning in. And tell me in the comments below which of these is your favorite. If you've seen any of them, do not spoil me on anything. But tell me which of these is your favorite if you've seen them, like, and are judging based on all you've seen, or even if you're just basing it off of the first episodes. I'd like to know. If I had to say which one was my favorite out of these, which one like really impressed me the most, I would say Dr. Stone. Honestly, Dr. Stone really impressed me. Like, it was extremely engaging. The worst, I would say, is Oshinoko. Oshinoko made me extremely uncomfortable, and actually was the only one on this list that I can say I hated. While the others that I don't plan to continue on right now, Vinland Saga and Golden Kamuy, just weren't really my thing. Heavenly Delusion, I really enjoyed as well, but I definitely need to see more of it before I can really judge it. It's just, for what the first episode was, I did really enjoy it, and I feel like it did its concept better than other shows that have done that similar kind of thing. But all of that being said, like I said, let me know your thoughts down below. And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.